Jean-Philippe and I, we are here for the podcast. And today we are continuing our book, Super Communicator. So, because of course, we have to work on that skill because communication is everywhere with your family, with your coworker, with your MLM, with your neighbor. So, everywhere. So, we have to be make sure to become better in communication. So yesterday we talked about the Netflix story. Do you remember that guy who during a meeting? So he is a boss, and we say that the culture at Netflix is very different. So people they can say anything that they want. Okay, so there's a rule, and the rule is you cannot stay silent. Okay, so if you have something to say, you have to say it. And during a meeting, so he was talking about a new show who is going to use a language and we are going to receive a lot of complaint, and he do a parallel with the n words. And of course the people in the meeting, they were very shocked. And they start to complain and say you don't have to use that words. And okay, so we're gonna put a pause on this story because we thought what the story talk it's about psychological safety. So when we have conversation, it's important that we have a psychological safety. So you cannot say anything to everyone, because you are going to receive the middle finger. Okay, so you need like a psychological safety. You have to have the right environment. You have to make sure that when you say something, the people are ready to hear it. So you have to have a connection with them. Okay, and sometimes conversation can go out of the rail easily today, this way. So today we're going to continue, and we're going to dig into the question that it's in the heart of everyone. Why are some conversation are so hard to have? Okay, it's not just a matter of topic; it's a matter of identity threat. Uh, Sometimes we can feel attacked on who we are when someone say something, and sometimes it's not that they think about okay, I'm gonna hurt him. No, it's something that they are going to say, and they even realizing it. Okay, so we're going to dive into the science beyond behind those moments when a conversation start well but suddenly it derails.
Yes, so I have a new story like to add. Well, actually, it's a study that has been made by two researchers in 2019. So it's not that far that far ago. So the two researcher, okay, they survey over 1,500 people about their difficult conversation from the past. Okay, they wanted to understand why some like certain topics like race, gender, ethnicity are hard to bring up and even like to discuss, okay, with the matter people, okay. So they recruited people throughout like the research of all ages. So their goal was actually to represent the different social classes that exist like in a normal environment. Okay, and their question were simple. Okay, they asked the participant, have you recently had a conversation where you didn't feel like you belong? Okay, or did you hear someone express prejudice, or did you hear jokes about people like you? You know, when you hear that, oh, your people like you. Okay, and actually what they discovered was really fascinating. Okay, many difficult conversation don't start on a controversial topic, which means that you have normal conversation, but at some point it kind of switch. Okay, they start on mundane subject like sport, work, television. Okay, but suddenly, okay, someone, okay, in the conversation says something and it makes the other person uncomfortable, and from that point the conversation derails. Okay, so what is happening? Okay, so the researcher, like, they analyze the data and everything, okay, and they identify one specific behaviors that actually derails conversation. And it was that, okay, assigning someone to a group against their will. So let me give you an example, just to be sure that you understand, because saying this way, okay, this will be hard. So, example, okay, if I say to somebody, oh, you're rich. So, you know that most people, okay, most rich people are snob. So by saying that, okay, the other person can feel offense, okay, because they are being assigned to a group that they didn't choose, okay. And then, okay, on the opposite, okay, you can have you didn't study law, okay, so you don't understand how law works. Okay, so when you are denied to a membership in a group that actually you value, so it means that you can be interested, okay, in something, and but people that maybe have degree or things like that can say, oh, no, 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 okay, you cannot be part of that group. So yes, sometimes it's subtle. Okay, so you can be also said, okay, oh, you're a good conservative, but most of them are only thinking about themselves. They're egotistical. So those are more subtle way that it can happen. Or, oh, you got at university because you're smart. Okay, but some people like you get in through just affirmative action. Okay, so as you can see, okay, those assignment into a group, or the way that you've been like take off a group, okay, can affect somebody, and that person from that moment, from that sentences, can feel very attacked and offended and just like black out and did not want to participate anymore.
Yes, and I'm sure it happens to you, Jean-Philippe, and it happens to me. So the researcher called this identity threat. Uh, it's the feeling that you are is it's the feeling that who you are is under attack. So the pattern is simple. So let's say someone says something that assign you to a group they abhor. So you feel that you are having an identity threat. Okay, so you are not a liar, so you cannot understand. Oh, you, yes, you are very smart. This is why you have been chose to the university. But you know, there's always positive. Let's say you are part of a. How do you say? The you are you work you have been accepted to the university, you are smart, but it's because you are part of a minority group. Okay, some people, so like you said, okay, I'm gonna read it. You got into the university because you're smart, but some people like you get in through affirmative action. Okay, so can you imagine the threat that you are going to encounter? Okay, so it's like someone deny them the membership in the group they value, so you feel the identity threat. And when we experience identity threat, we are going to react, and we are going maybe to counter attack. Okay, maybe you're going to become defensive, or you're going to withdraw yourself. Okay, so it's either a way. So this is exactly what we see in our team. So if we are having, let's say, a consultant and she make a mistake, okay, and I tell her, I tell her that, okay, you have to do more, okay, calls, you have to do more live sales, you have to do more to go to the meeting. Okay, so she's gonna feel threat. Okay, she hear, I am not competent enough. Okay, I'm not good at this job. Okay, so this is an identity threat, and a reaction, so either she defends herself, um, I'm ready. I'm already doing fam. I'm already doing this and this, or she's going to withdraw. Okay, So she's gonna say to herself, "Oh, maybe I don't belong in the community. I'm not going to the meeting. I'm not going to this." So the conversation is over. Okay, she's no longer listening. She's protecting herself. The worst part is it happens all the time, and I remember some situations, Jean-Philippe, that I say, "Oh my God, I messed up." Okay, I did this, and it's we evolve. Okay, so we criticize an action, and the other person hears a criticism of their person. Okay, so we this is something that they don't like. Okay, so the researcher found that identity threat doesn't just affect minorities. Okay, if you are rich, if you are white, you are straight, you are gay, it doesn't protect you. Okay, anyone can feel attacked in their identity.
Yes. So if like how does this can happen into our team? Well, we have people from different horizons. So obviously, as we said, like everybody can feel threat at a certain point because we don't know what are their background necessarily also. Okay. So here is an example. So take a consultant that is struggling right now with doing like let's say demonstration. Okay, so being on live or really like explaining well the products like or the stress of like put a camera in front of themselves. Okay, so they're new, they're stressed, and like while they are doing their demonstration, it doesn't go well. Like the dog is barking, the kids are there, or like there is a technical problem, like everything. And let me just tell you, this is happening a lot. Okay, especially when you start when you're doing your first. Okay, so as a leader, yes, obviously you want to help them, okay? And most of the times, because we've been through that, okay, you're going to tell those people, oh, you just need to prepare better before your demonstration. But by doing that, okay, what they hear, because they already stressed and they already thinking of that, is, oh, I'm not good at this, okay, which is threaten their identity, or like I might even quit, okay, or this is not the place for me. So by getting to them, okay, with something maybe a little bit too direct, okay, instead of trying to understand what did happen, like he was stressed, she was stressed, okay, that's the end of the story, that's it. There is not necessarily something to add. It not putting them in a safe environment where they can express themselves, okay. Or like somebody else, okay, like just another example, a consultant that did not want to use social media, especially those days where like most of business are online, okay, and you tell them, okay, because like they don't want to be on social media, you just tell them you need to get on TikTok. Okay. So what they hear is you're old fashioned, you're not modern, you cannot succeed in that business. So it threatened their identity and they shut down. And most of the time they will say, well, that business is not for me. Okay. Or a consultant, like we had that, okay, especially during COVID when we got new consultant that bring new approaches to sell. Okay, so when you look at them, you say, oh, this is not the way we're doing. I'm thinking of a director that we had in Sabrina organization. I don't know if you remember, Sylvain. She was doing like draws and bingos, and she actually get the title of director. But when she got that title, we told her, you cannot do that anymore. You need to the home party. You need to like do that. And we lost her. Okay. So by doing that, okay, we told her that what you're doing is not good. What you're doing is not okay. Okay. What you're doing is worthless. So it threatened their identity. Okay. So as you can see, okay, like sometimes it's not in your intention to threaten them, you want to help them, but the way that you are doing it, okay, can threaten their identity. Okay, so Sylvain, do you have like maybe the other example of actually how it's created?
Yes, one day. So I have a director, and she is so good. But we always say that our team looks us. Okay, so we are the reflect of our team. But when I look at her, I say, "No, my God, she is so good and professional." But the team was different. Let's say, okay. So I tell her that you are really good, and but in your team, they are not the same, and she felt threatened. Okay, my goal was to value her, and she heard, okay, I am being compared to my team and I love my team, so she felt uncomfortable. And I was not doing this because I want to protect her, because she was investing a lot into people that they don't want to do something. They just want to, let's say, surround her and be with her and take her time, and so I don't know. At the beginning, we all do this. You are meeting someone 1 hour to explain, okay, and they do nothing, okay. So my goal was to protect her, but she see it differently, okay. So it's like the researcher said, okay. Even when we try to do good, we can assign someone to a group they didn't choose, and that create that identity threat to that person. So I'm going to say sorry, okay. I'm not going to say her name. Okay, I'm going to protect the identity. Okay, so why are we avoiding those conversations? Because some conversations are tough. Okay, so in 2021, a study showed that 70% of participants see risk in talking about race, even with friends. And that story we're going to elaborate more on the next podcast. But Black people fear that their white friends might say something racist, even unintentionally, and that it would damage the friendship. Say, yes, sometimes you have discussion. Okay, so let's say I have people at my store, and I heard that what I'm doing, it's not good. So let's say I have a black woman, and I not I live, but I stay in Senegal for 3 years, and I always try to find people who are from Senegal. Okay, so I can recognize some threat, and sometimes if she said the name, I can say, "Oh yes, probably she is from Senegal." Okay, and let's say if I ask her, "Where are you from?" It could be threatening for them, because sometimes they are born in Canada, and I'm asking her, "Where are you from?" My goal, it's just I'm curious, and I want to know, are she is coming from Senegal, but maybe she is from Congo, and she doesn't like my question. Okay, so I can understand sometimes it could harsh people. Okay, so when in the study, they say black people fear that their white friend might say something racist, even unintentionally, and that it would damage the friendship. White people fear saying something hurtful by accident, and the result, usually we avoid the subject of race and we stay quiet. And it's something that we should, let's say, dig more into that subject, because we need to understand the people, how do they feel. Okay, so we're going to talk more about this study in the next podcast.
Yes, and like those, what you were saying is something that I understand really well. I did remember, and it was always out of curiosity, working with kids at school and working in like the cadet program. We have a lot of like minorities, so people that like kids that their parents were immigrant or that their grandparents were immigrant. And with my background like in geography and history, it was always made out of curiosity. I want to learn like were you born here, or where, like, especially when I'm taking the name, like when I'm doing like the bill at the store, and like they say the name and say, oh, what is the origin of that? It's always out of curiosity. But yes, because we didn't build trust necessarily enough, it can be misinterpreted. So absolutely, Sylvain, I know like how it can be perceived, okay, with our curiosity. So yes, it can also happen into our team, and most of the times because we fear what the other person is going to think or going to do, or even if it's unintentionally, we will avoid conversation. Okay, so we don't tell somebody, oh, you're stagnating, or like because you're afraid of hurting them. Okay, so or you don't ask a consultant why they are less invested, or because you're afraid of their answer. So you avoid those conversation, and you let the problem like getting bigger and bigger. Okay, so what is happening is both people are felt alone, okay, and misunderstood. So we will dig, as we say, like a little bit more deeper of how you can have those conversation into our next podcast. But what is happening is you understand that it's because of that identity threat. We fear like to say something, or like even if it's unintentionally, that will hurt the other person. Okay, so nothing will improve until we have that honest, okay, conversation.
Yes, and how do we diffuse identity threat? So first, we have to recognize that it's not just a matter of words; it's a matter of identity. So we start by separating the person from the action. So let's say I have something to say to my consultant. Okay, um, I will not say you're bad at demonstration, or you're bad because you're not doing enough FAM. Okay, we have to say something like, okay, that live, let's say, was not up to your potential. Okay, so I'm talking about the live. I'm not talking about her. Okay, I'm trying to create a safe space. Okay, I'm here to help you to grow. I'm not here to judge you. Okay, I have to create that feeling that she is in security with me. Okay, I'm not here to judge. I am here to help you to grow. And above all, we avoid generalization. Okay, we don't say like, okay, people like you, or you're the good one, or you are intelligent but the other one. Okay, we all the republic, all the conservative are the liberal are. So we avoid that kind of generalization, because this phrase assign the other person to a group, and that can create identity threat.
Yes. So the best advice, okay, that we can give you, like, is like talk about yourself, not the other person. So always like say, I feel frustrated when, okay. So instead of you did that. Okay, so remember, this is also like some of the basic rule in leadership. Always talk to like the I and not from the you. Okay, you don't want to accuse somebody. Okay, and this is what we saw in the previous podcast, when we talk about the how do we feel conversation and the who we are conversation. Okay, actually those two conversation, they come together. So we really need to understand that by having, okay, that phrases or that identity threat, or by assigning somebody to a group, that, okay, the how do we feel conversation will be affected also. Okay, so let's summarize, Sylvain. What are the lessons that we can learn from our podcast today?
Yes, so lesson number one. So difficult conversation don't always start on controversial topics. Sometimes they start on, mundane subject, or okay. Then a sentence assign the other person to a group they didn't choose. Okay, so you are not a lawyer, so you don't understand the law. So I am now not part of that group, so I feel threatened. Number two, identity threat is the reason people dig in their heels. We criticize an action and they hear an attack on who they are. So you're not doing fam enough. So she's gonna feel threat, or you're gonna say, oh, that session was not up to your potential. Okay. Number three, anyone can experience identity threat. You are white, you are rich, you are straight, it doesn't protect you. So we all going to feel those threats one day or another one.
Yes. Lesson number 4, we avoid difficult conversation because we're afraid of hurting or being heard. And by avoiding those conversations, unfortunately, the problem will fester and the problem will get bigger and bigger. And lesson number 5, the solution is to separate the person from the action and always talk in a safe space. That is our job as a leader, and talk about yourself, okay? About your point of view and your feeling. So let's use that week, okay, to just reflect on the conversation that you're having, and when you're discussing with somebody, a colleague, an acquaintance, or that you go into a store or into a place where you're doing business with, okay, try to think, am I assigning this person to a group they didn't choose? Okay. If so, okay, just like talk about yourself, rephrase that, okay, because a person who feel attacked, okay, in their identity, unfortunately, they will stop listening to you. And when they withdraw themselves, unfortunately, you can have that conversation. Okay. So next week we will continue, okay, and talking a bit more about how can we be sure, okay, before having those conversations, okay, we can take some action, okay, to create a place where those type of conversation can happen without threatening the identity of other people. So on that, thank you so much for being with us, and I will see you tomorrow with Maria and Marie-Pierre. Bye.